Okay, I'm very happy to be here. I think my presence in Istanbul is a proof that dreams do come true. I've always dreamed to visit Istanbul, and now I'm here. And so I'd like to greet our students who are online right now at the American University of Southern Asia. Good morning. Well, hi, son.
It's okay.
Okay. Since, as you heard a while ago, can I sit so that I go since the presentations? That all of us are actually now required to have action plans for cooking be a disaster. So my task is to at least give you some points to help you design, or to help us design, including me, action plans for disaster response, management, mitigation, and these are programs and projects that we can probably implement in our communities or in our schools. Some of the things that are included in my slides are not actually me, but we just try to give a reinterpretation of some approaches and theories that we can possibly use when we design our projects and programs for implementation. These are disaster-related ones. So my lecture today will be designing and implementing ethical disaster-related projects through integral ecology approach. Now, I am trying to accommodate the integral theory to, at least in one way or the other, help us improve our projects and our programs in relation to disasters. Okay. Now, there are many disaster-related programs. I mean, programs that do not cause disaster, I hope, but programs that will help us solve problems when it comes to disaster events. But sometimes these programs are rather risky. They create risky behaviors. What do I mean by these? Some programs, when they are implemented, rather than helping people, people are sometimes exploited. Or there are some aspects in the lives of the victims of disaster that are not well considered, and sometimes implementing projects violates some human rights, some cultural differences, peculiarities. Sometimes projects are biased towards a particular organization or a particular country who offers a help, for example, to a different country. So there are numerous programs, some short-term, others unsustainable, but many are truly helpful and effective. We can identify the fact that these projects truly are helping people, the victims of disaster particularly. Too often, they pose risks to other factors affecting the life of the victims or recipients. Projects and programs unintentionally violate some human rights, I have mentioned a while ago, including ethical principles and social sensitivities. Developing a program or project guided by ethics principles ensures the protection of the rights and dignity of the victims and guarantees respect for their social, environmental, religious, and cultural conditions. Sometimes when a disaster happens, we always see the disaster, that we forget the ramifications behind the disaster. Or we forget the human condition of the victims, or the social conditions of the victims, or even the politics and the economics that are behind disaster response and management programs. Okay, now, disaster is not simply a chaos event. We know that when disaster strikes, there is chaos, and people, sometimes even government itself, are not really prepared to respond effectively and efficiently to disasters. Sometimes response and management comes after a week or two, or even a month or 2 months. Now, disasters are actually covers different areas of our lives. They have environmental and ecological effects and consequences. We know that. When a disaster strikes, environment changes. When a disaster strikes, habitats are destroyed. When disasters strike, ecological balance is affected. Disasters are also sociological. They are also sociological. They affect structures of our societies, and even social relations of people, and even relations of different communities. They are also psychological. We know the trauma caused by disasters. Sometimes, for example, in the Philippines, when the biggest typhoon that hit land in the world hit the country, that's Typhoon Haiyan, or we call it in the Philippines, Yolanda. There are numerous people, survivors of families who died. For example, one family There was only one survivor, only the father, the rest of them 7, including the wife, they all died in the disaster. And the man, the husband, ended up being in a mental hospital. And sometimes psychological conditions of victims are not really given much focus or attention in disaster situations because we are so busy providing for the physical needs, housing needs, clothing, food, etc., etc. But the psychological is not really given that much attention. Disasters are also economic issues. We know that when disasters strike, sometimes businessmen do raise prices of basic commodities to earn more. So the victims are, rather than help, they are exploited. We call it double jeopardy. And all that, of course, livelihood and work ends after a disaster, so people end up not having anything to gain money or income. Disasters are also structural issues. We know that it destroys properties, not only homes, but even public structures. And for example, if there is an earthquake and a government building is the one that is affected, government service ends. Okay? Or, like in the case of Typhoon Haiyan, even the firefighters, the fire volunteers, the rescue officials and volunteers, they were all affected, and would you expect them to go and rescue and help other people when they themselves, their families are already dead and they are already affected? Because the structures, even the facilities, are also destroyed by disaster. So disaster is also a structural problem. More so, disasters are political issues. Sometimes the victims are exploited, especially when an election is coming. You go and help the victims with the photo ops and take pictures while the politician gives, helps. And then they use that to campaign. Or to reinforce their falling ratings. So disasters are political issues, and sometimes oppositions and administration people, they quarrel about how much should they give to a particular community. Is that community supportive of you or not? So to give them a budget or to give them some help. While this particular province is supportive of the administration or the politicians, you give them more. So it has become a situation where politicians exploit the conditions of the victims of disaster. Of course, there are other areas in politics that are quite operative when it comes to disaster. They are also spiritual issues. You'll hear people, when they are interviewed on TV, saying, oh, it's the will of God, so we just have to accept it. Or people will say, they question even God, where was he when the disaster, killing people, destroying our livelihood, destroying our houses. So, it's really a spiritual issue also. And of course, it's an anthropological issue, questioning the very reality of human suffering, questioning the reality of human happiness. And it is a moral issue. We know for a fact that disaster breeds corruption sometimes. While there are many countries who suffer because of big disasters, Haiti, for example, while the Philippines we are in the Pacific Ring of Fire, so we live every day under the shadow of disasters, volcanic eruptions, earthquakes, typhoons, etc. And moral issues like, when countries donate money, where will the money go? Will they all be used for the victims of disaster, or will they be used for the fuel or the vehicle of this particular politician or this stuff? A moral issue like distribution of goods. How can you justly distribute equally the goods that were given? Moral issues like respect for human dignity, for example. Sometimes media doesn't know how to respect human dignity. You read victims and they are victimizing you, exposing you on national TV while you are crying, and without even your permission and consent. So, this is how complicated and complex disaster. So when we implement projects and programs, which area are we trying to respond to? Or should programs and projects that are related to disaster address all of these? Or should we consider all of these so that our programs and projects are really effective, really are responding to what the victims need? So, it's a multi-layered experience. Its effects are rather irreversible, whether it's psychological, a destructive but also a reconstructive event if we have good projects and programs. So planning, preparing, and responding, and even management is a complicated and difficult task. So for a project or program to be effective, it must consider all the different aspects of disaster experience and be sensitive to them. Avoid the risk of creating a double jeopardy event for the victims. Like for example, well, of course, you cannot prevent video from taking pictures, and sometimes they celebrate the suffering of people to get ratings. If you are the disaster management manager or director of the place, how will you control the exploitation of the victims of disaster? What guidelines you are supposed to give these people, even those volunteers, so that the rights, the dignity, the integrity of the victims will still be respected, promoted, and protected in their situation. Now, there was a theory some years ago, about 2004, 2005, it was made famous by Wilder and then two German philosophers, integral ecology. Then it became a central issue in philosophy today in environmental issues, as well as disaster response, especially after the release of some documents, like the agreement in Paris, France, COP 2016 or 2015. I was in Japan then. It was okay. So what is integral ecology? Well, it's the new paradigm of intergenerational environmental justice and common good. Okay, intergenerational environmental justice and common good. It is the study of objective and subjective aspects of organisms in relation to their intersubjective and interobjective environments at all levels of depth and complexity. While there are some big words there, intersubjective and interobjective, but we'll come to understand these terminologies as we go on with the presentation. So basically, integral ecology is a perspective inspired by the need to better understand the relationship between organism and environmental problem events. We are accommodating the theory now, or framework to effectively design and implement projects and programs on disaster mitigation, response, and management. So the next slides will be the framework. What are the things that are included in this integral ecology framework that can help us design or implement the disaster-related projects and programs? Now, according to integral theory, there are at least 4 irreducible perspectives that must be consulted when attempting to understand and remedy environmental problems, and in this case, disasters. These 4 irreducible perspectives, when we say irreducible, it means it cannot be simplified. It cannot be taken for granted. They must be there. They must be considered in their entirety. You cannot reduce them into different parts. You cannot compartmentalize them, nor you cannot fragmentalize them. You cannot separate one property from another. So these are the 4. We have the experiential phenomena, which is kind of the internal experience of the victim, like questions on self-identity, emotions, sensations, perceptions, beliefs and values, thoughts, and even aesthetics. And then you have the exterior reality. These are behavioral and physical phenomena, like behavior, physical characteristics, chemical characteristics, in cases, for example, of chemical disaster, or contamination, or radiation, biological characteristics, geologic characteristics, and morphology. And then you have below, the lower left, you have cultural phenomena like communities. What kind of communities you are responding to? These communities, they have their own cultural peculiarities or unique cultural practices and views. Communication, cultures, language, religion, spirituality, history, and philosophy. And then lower right, you have social and system phenomena. Ecologic systems, technological systems, economic systems, political systems, social systems, education and information. Well, I believe the most difficult section will be the lower right, where politics, economy, technology, social responses are. Normally, this is where conflicts come from in disaster events. So how are we going to use this framework? So if you look at the framework and accommodate it to disaster response and management, you see that projects and programs related to disaster are not really simple. You may go out there in communities where disaster happened and give them feeding program, but feeding program is not just feeding program. You may supply what the body needs, but after a day or two, they return back to the original state of despair, suffering, and pain. So, did you actually respond effectively to their disaster experience? Or you might go out there giving them psychological and religious support, but then are you sensitive to their cultural beliefs and practices? Or you might be already violating their sensitivities, cultural sensitivities. So before we go to a particular disaster area, you have to consider different aspects of their experience. So these perspectives are represented by 4 categories according to Wilder in 2005. You have the intentional I, the cultural we, the social needs, and the behavioral need. In effect, when we use integral ecology to design projects and programs on disaster, these are the 4 that we need to consider. Intentional, the I, which means the victim himself, and you, the responder, or you, the one who's helping them. What's happening with them and what's happening with you? Clarification of their intentions and their experiences, behavioral responses, etc., etc. Cultural will be the we. I'll go into some details of these quadrants. What do we mean by I, the intentional I? What are included there? In disasters, we have crisis of consciousness. And when we say crisis of consciousness, the I, the victims, they have reactive emotions. Sometimes if you give a bottle of water, they will complain, just a bottle of water? What about a gallon of water? So they demand more than what you are giving them. And sometimes they will get angry because you're not giving them as much as they want to, or as much as they need. Sometimes you can only give what they need in a day or two, and they complain about it. So because they have reactive emotions, and we have to understand that. I experienced that myself during Bahaya when we went to the community and gave food and water, and they shouted at us for giving just a bottle or 2 of water. So we want to get angry and say, we are giving you something in the jar complaining. But of course, we have to understand these are their reactive emotions. Lack of perspective taking, for example. Self-identity issues and psychological dynamics. The crisis of behavior also happens like the experience of apathy, resource use, consumerism, under adherence to science. Sometimes people, when they encounter science, they rather believe their superstitions than science. And that's difficult to change. Some people are difficult to convince using science, and they find it difficult to change their perspectives, their paradigms. And they hold on to what they believe to be the cause of the disaster. So they respond according to that particular belief. Okay, no. Crisis of culture, for example, we have worldview clashes, religious fundamentalism, philosophical unclarity, tribalism. Let me include their religious exclusivism. There are some religious communities who only help their own members. They go to the community and they say, only these are to be helped. But what about the others who are also victims of disaster? And the each will be crisis of systems, political dynamics, ineffective education, poor regulation enforcement. Okay. And those who have experienced helping people in disaster areas, I believe you have experienced all of these, especially in these crisis of systems. When systems break down, we all get lost, even the responders do get lost. Now, what are the implications of this framework to our LBD, Working Beyond Disaster? Now, in considering projects and programs of disaster, we must seek comprehensive solutions which consider the interactions within natural systems themselves and with social systems. Because everything is intimately related. We are a whole system working as one. The analysis of disasters cannot be dissociated from the analysis of human, family, work, and urban contexts, and how individuals relate to themselves, to others, and to their world. I'll give you an example. We have this, this was the example I gave some years ago in Japan during the bioethics roundtable in Kumamoto. Toxic emissions, for example. So what are the things that are involved in toxic emissions, which is a form of disaster, environmental disaster? The individual experiences we have involved in this disaster are psychological level, states, beliefs, conditions, pathologies, individual attitudes, fears, greed, hate, delusion, personal inquiry, transformative practices. On the exterior, you have health of the organisms, meaning the humans and those affected. Not only humans, but even animals and plants. Physical effects, behaviors impacted, behaviors involved. Lower right, you have collective systems like ecosystem impacts, social factors, economic variables, political dynamics, institutions involved. And lower left, you have collective cultures like ideologies, worldviews, religious systems, group values, multiple perspectives, mutual understanding, and disagreement. All of these, they are operative in toxic emission disaster events. So just imagine if you are going there, you are responding to this event, disaster event, and all of these aspects are all operational at that particular moment in time, and if you are not effective in responding to these situations, you will create more crisis, trouble, than help. So you end up quarreling with the people because you think they cannot understand you, when in fact you cannot probably understand it. You end up quarreling with politicians because the politicians have another agenda, and you have another agenda, and you are not talking to one another using the same language or the same terminologies, or even the same objectives. Or you may be helping them, giving them something, but the materials that you are using them, once they are done consuming what is inside, they end up throwing the plastics in the environment, and the environment suffers after. Things like this. So even the materials that we give them will naturally affect their surroundings after the disaster. So, I'm taking the term ecology here to refer to home, we are our own home, and our community is our home. So whatever happens in our community or in ourselves happens in our ecological circle. So we have 5 ecologies involved then in integral disasters. In this integral approach to disaster, you have environmental ecology related to collective systems a while ago in the framework. You have economic ecology, still under collective systems. You have social ecology under still collective systems. Cultural ecology under collective cultures. And human ecology under individual behaviors and experiences. Let me explain the application. What do we mean by environmental ecology and its relation to designing projects and programs related to disaster? Now, in terms of environmental ecology, you have to consider the relationship of people to their environment. There's a phenomenon called when one misses the home that was already destroyed, solastalgia, which was conceptualized by an Australian philosopher. It is not just missing the place, but missing the connection that was broken to the place where you used to after the disaster. So when there were so many trees in the mountain, after the trees are all gone, something is happening inside the person. And we call that situation solastalgia, still being explored now in many disciplines. So there are anything that will aggravate the environmental damage. Like, after, I know, for example, in evacuation sites, there are so many wastes. You see plastics everywhere. And we believe that, we know for a fact now that plastic waste do have a toll on our environment. And eventually, we will all be suffer because of these plastics that we throw away. And I don't know how can we give water not in plastic bottles? Because they don't know how to recycle it. They just throw them away everywhere. And then they end up in rivers and in canals. So to not give anything that will end up a waste and eventually cause further damage or disaster. Consider also the interaction between organisms in a given area. So you don't just build relegation sites in places where animal, plants, insect species are affected because we may have loss of habitat, for example, death of species or extinction of a particular species, or destructive migration. We know animals do migrate in different places, so when their habitat are lost, they go to another place which they are not supposed to be there. We know that animals and plants are in one place because they are supposed to be there, and they move to another place where they are not accustomed to. They destroy the environment, like insects, for example. Consider endemic species when planting trees. So if your project or program is planting trees to reforest a particular mountain, don't just plant anything. And we know this, that's something said before, I'll just say it again. They must be endemic to the place and not invasive. I know one river, I think in the US, there's an invasive species of fish from Asia, and now native fish are not taken. There's one laboratory in our country. They are genetically modifying tilapia, St. Peter's fish, so that they become super tilapia. But the problem is when they release it in the wild, they eat the native fingerlings of tilapia, and they kill them. So, what about economic ecology? So, every disaster has economic effects. So, an analysis of disasters cannot be separated from the analysis of work or livelihood, food, shelter, income, spending, even supplies, market movements, supply and demand, resource allocation, production of goods, prices of commodities, among others. So, when designing and implementing disaster-related projects and programs, consider the economic conditions of the people themselves and the economic movements in the community. Do not promise anything you cannot financially sustain or support. Do not make them dependent on what you can give. You have to avoid spoon feeding. Have programs that helps them gain economically also, not merely recipients, but producers of economically viable and sustainable livelihood and goods. Sometimes they end up dependent on what we give. So when everything stops, their lives also stop. They complain because there is nothing left for them. So when you say disaster management and you want people to be independent, have a project that can be sustained, and where victims can actually earn economically, just not be dependent on relief goods or spoon feeding. Now, social ecology. The health of society's institutions has consequences for an effective disaster-related programs and projects, and the quality of human life of the victims. So every violation of solidarity and civic friendship harms further the victims of disaster. Institutions were developed to regulate human relations, and when something is done that weakens those institutions, it will result to negative consequences like violence, injustice, even loss of freedom. We know that in disaster areas, loss and goods seem to disappear. There's violence, and the danger of violence every day is there. You might not know one refugee might be killing the other for a bottle of water.
Gender violence.
It happens, right?
Gender violence.
Yeah, gender violence also, which is, we know, it's happening everywhere. It's happening everywhere. So when systems collapse and we are weakened, effective social response to disaster is also weakened. And there are, violations, even bad consequences, like death. So respect social institutions and systems, be aware and recognize them as part of the social milieu of the victims. Social ecology involves ethical ecology. What do you mean by ethical ecology? So just make sure that your projects and programs are not violative of ethical principles, especially benevolence, non-maleficence, justice, consent, common good, distributive justice, autonomy, religious freedom, respect for persons, subsidiarity, among others. Now, cultural ecology. Each community has its own unique culture, and we know that. Way of life, way of doing things, they have their own ideas, customs, and traditions, language, peculiarities and differences, expressions, religious beliefs, they have their own symbolisms, racial sensitivities, rituals, leadership styles and systems. Sometimes there is a political head, but the one who really has authority is the elder of the community. So you might be approaching the wrong person when you arrive at a particular community. The political leader might have the political power. The moral power is with the elder of the community. Sometimes conflict happens when you don't meet the expectations of these two. So you have to be socially sensitive. Avoid imposing your own culture, your own belief system, because they have their own. But if you do not know what they have, you actually do not know what you are giving them. So avoid cultural bias or ethnocentrism, meaning interpreting and judging phenomena by standards inherent to one's own culture. So don't judge them based on your cultural standards. You have to understand and study them to be more effective. Avoid racial biases and discrimination, probably even the language that you use when you are helping them. You may not be sensitive enough, but you're already using terms and language that violates their sensitivities, their emotions. So you create violence or even negative reactions. Unless otherwise destructive and inhuman, respect and use their cultural practices and beliefs to better design and implement your project or program. We call this enculturation of projects and programs, the disaster. So you have to enculturate your projects and programs. So it is more effective because people understand. Because you are using your own terms, you are using your own culture, belief system when you implement projects. Unless I have a disclaimer there. Unless it is destructive and inhuman. Okay, I hope you know what I'm trying. So attempting to resolve all problems through uniform regulation or technical interventions can lead to overlooking the complexities of local problems, which demand the active participation of all in the community. There is a need to respect the rights of people and culture, without the T, and to appreciate that the development of a social group presupposes a historical process which takes place within a cultural context and demands the constant and active participation of local people promoting their proper culture. And the last one is human ecology. I think this is quite easy to understand. Ecology of daily life in our home, family, workplace, and neighborhood. That's human ecology. Cannot be separated from the notion of common good, central and unifying principle of social ethics. Be mindful of their personal experiences, their pains, frustrations, sensitivities. Look at the system of relationship between individuals and families within a given community. Okay, examine their communal practices, their family dynamics, even the way they see their bodies and their body's relationship to their surroundings. So it is necessary to proceed with a careful discernment of the complex fundamental differences of human life, of man and woman, of fatherhood and motherhood, of filiation and paternity, of sociality, and also of all the different ages of life. Okay. Consider the bioethics of human dignity and human life, for example. Do not take illness and death as a starting point in deciding the meaning of life or defining the value of the person. Rather, start from the profound conviction of the irrevocable dignity of the human person in every phase and condition of his existence, in search for the forms of love and care that must be addressed to his vulnerability and fragility. Profile your target community, and this is very basic, and we know this. What are the complexities of relationships within the community? What diseases are there that might be infectious? The food that they eat, etc., etc. Make every effort to make your project or program more human, not mechanical responses. So, final thoughts. Disaster preparedness and management is not just a complex environmental and human phenomenon. It is more of a complex ecological event and condition that demands integral approach. Disasters endanger human lives and reshapes the environment, but its effects are more profound than death and destruction. The human person is a microcosm of realities. To better address his or her conditions in disaster events, this entire microcosm must be recognized to make more actively participative and cooperative the people in any program or project. We do not address disasters in a fragmented or compartmentalized manner, or else we might be causing disaster in other areas not addressed or recognized. Thank you very much. if you want to.
Any question?
Maybe we should have questions at tea break, I think.
Yeah.
This is a very complicated natural subject you have brought me for us. Even for me to understand clearly very difficult. Anyway, what I have learned from you right now, I would like to conclude it like that. For ethical disaster or environmental management plan, we should keep in our mind that we should be more, we should teach people that for any development program or any approach, we should be more close to the natural phenomena, natural processes, then we can avoid this disaster more clearly and clearly. So we must be living, thinking like that, living with nature. That is, our approach should be more natural than the other way. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Yeah, that's why I like the Oriental view of relationship of man to nature. Whatever happens to nature happens to man. Whatever happens to man happens to nature. Anything you do that destroys humanity, you destroy nature. If you destroy nature, you destroy humanity. So,
Yeah.
I subscribe to that idea. Thank you for Oriental philosophy.
Thank you very much, Marlon.